Deep beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, where sunlight barely reached and silence reigned supreme, a team of scientists worked tirelessly aboard the research vessel Ocean Seeker. The ship rocked gently with the rhythm of the waves as its crew focused on their mission. Their leader, Rachel Morgan, stood at the edge of the deck, staring into the vast expanse of water that stretched endlessly before her. She was a marine biologist in her mid-30s, with sharp green eyes and a determined expression. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her face bore the faint lines of someone who spent more time thinking than relaxing. Rachel had always been fascinated by the mysteries of the deep. From the moment she first learned about hydrothermal vents and underwater trenches in school, she knew she wanted to explore them. Now, years later, she led a team conducting a routine geological survey near the Mariana Trench, one of the deepest parts of the ocean. It wasn't supposed to be anything extraordinary, just another mapping expedition to study the seafloor's composition. But sometimes, even the most ordinary missions could lead to the most incredible discoveries. The day started like any other. The team had deployed sonar equipment to scan the seabed below. As the data streamed in, Rachel's assistant, Kevin Harper, sat hunched over a computer screen inside the ship's control room. Kevin was a young man in his 20s, eager to prove himself but prone to nervousness when things didn't go according to plan. He adjusted his glasses and frowned as he studied the readings. Something unusual had appeared, a large, irregular shape buried under layers of sediment. At first, he thought it might be a natural formation, perhaps a massive rock or a collapsed ridge. But the more he looked, the less sense it made. "Rachel," Kevin called out hesitantly, glancing toward the doorway where Rachel stood chatting with Daniel Carter, a retired naval officer who had joined the expedition as a consultant. "You should come see this." Rachel turned and walked over, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. Daniel followed close behind. Though Daniel was older than Rachel, with graying temples and a weathered face, he still carried himself with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. He had served in the U.S. Navy for decades before retiring, and now he worked as an advisor for various government projects. His experience made him invaluable on missions like this one, especially when unexpected challenges arose. "What is it?" Rachel asked, leaning over Kevin's shoulder to get a better look at the screen. Kevin pointed to the anomaly. "It's bigger than anything we've seen so far. And it doesn't look natural." Daniel squinted at the image. "Could it be a wreck? Maybe a ship that sank during the war?" Rachel shook her head. "No, it's too big to be a regular ship. Look at these dimensions." She tapped the screen, highlighting the object's size. "This thing is enormous. If it's man-made, it would have to be some kind of superstructure." The three of them exchanged puzzled glances. Whatever it was, it warranted further investigation. After a quick discussion, they decided to send down a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, to take a closer look. The ROV, equipped with cameras and lights, descended slowly into the darkness below. Everyone gathered around the monitors, watching intently as the footage came in. At first, all they saw was murky water and drifting particles. Then suddenly the camera caught sight of something metallic glinting in the dim light. "There!" Kevin exclaimed, pointing excitedly at the screen. "Do you see that?" Rachel nodded, her heart racing. The object was indeed artificial. Its surface was smooth and angular, unlike anything found in nature. As the ROV moved closer, more details emerged. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, along with what appeared to be seams or joints. The structure seemed to stretch on forever, disappearing into the gloom beyond the camera's range. "It's huge!" Daniel muttered, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "And those markings, they don't look like anything I've ever seen." Rachel felt a mix of awe and unease. This discovery was far beyond anything she had anticipated. Could it really be a relic from humanity's past? Or was it something else entirely? She glanced at Daniel, who looked equally unsettled. "We need to tell someone about this," she said finally. "Someone higher up," Daniel agreed. "But let's not jump to conclusions yet. We don't know what we're dealing with." For now, keep this between us until we gather more information. Over the next few hours, the team worked feverishly to document the find. They took measurements, collected samples, and recorded every detail they could. The deeper they probed, the more questions arose. How long had this structure been down there? Who or what had built it? And why had it been hidden away? As night fell, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something monumental. She stepped outside onto the deck, letting the cool ocean breeze wash over her. The stars twinkled faintly above, their light reflected in the rippling water below. Somewhere beneath those waves lay answers to questions humanity hadn't even known to ask. Answers that could change everything. Back inside, Daniel sat alone in the control room, poring over the data. He couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Discoveries like this rarely ended well. Still, he reminded himself that knowledge was power. If they played their cards right, this could be the greatest breakthrough in human history. All they had to do was tread carefully and hope they weren't stepping into something far bigger than they could handle. Little did they know, the true significance of their discovery was only beginning to reveal itself. Deep within the structure, dormant systems stirred to life, responding to the presence of the intruders. Ancient mechanisms whirred and clicked, awakening after centuries of slumber. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just a relic of the past. It was alive, and it had been waiting. The next morning, the atmosphere aboard the Ocean Seeker was tense but charged with excitement. Rachel, Daniel, and the rest of the team gathered in the ship's briefing room to discuss their next steps. The discovery of the massive structure beneath the waves had left everyone restless. It was clear that they were dealing with something far beyond anything they had encountered before. But what exactly was it? And what should they do about it? "We need to get inside," Rachel said, firmly, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the group. She stood at the front of the room, a map of the seafloor spread out on the table in front of her. "Whatever this thing is, we won't learn much by just looking at it from the outside." Daniel nodded slowly, his arms crossed over his chest. "Agreed, but we need to be careful. We don't know what kind of condition it's in or if it's even safe to approach." Kevin, who had been unusually quiet since the previous night, raised his hand hesitantly. "What if it's, I don't know, booby-trapped or something? What if it's dangerous?" Rachel gave him a reassuring smile, though her own nerves were fraying. "That's why we'll take every precaution. We'll send down a small team first, equipped with everything we need to assess the situation. If there's any sign of danger, we pull back immediately." With the decision made, the team began preparing for the dive. They assembled a group of 4 volunteers, Rachel herself, Daniel, Kevin, and Jack Collins, a skilled pilot who had experience operating submersibles in deep-sea environments. Jack was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a calm demeanor that put others at ease. He had joined the expedition as part of the support crew, but his expertise made him an obvious choice for this mission. As they suited up and climbed into the submersible, the weight of what they were about to do settled heavily on their shoulders. None of them knew what awaited them below. Was it a sunken artifact from Earth's distant past? Or something entirely alien? The possibilities swirled in their minds as the submersible descended into the dark waters. The journey down felt endless. The deeper they went, the darker it became, until all they could see was the faint glow of the submersible's lights cutting through the blackness. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the structure. Up close, it was even more imposing than they had imagined. Its surface was smooth and metallic, reflecting their lights in strange patterns. The symbols etched into the metal seemed to shimmer faintly, as though alive. "This is incredible," Rachel whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It looks almost futuristic." "Or ancient," Daniel added, narrowing his eyes. "Like it's from a time long before ours." Jack maneuvered the submersible closer, searching for an entry point. After several minutes, they spotted what appeared to be a hatch, a circular door embedded in the side of the structure. It was sealed shut, but there were no visible handles or locks. Instead, a series of glowing panels surrounded the edges of the hatch. "Looks like we've got ourselves a puzzle," Jack said, grinning despite the tension. Any ideas how to open it? Kevin leaned forward, studying the panels intently. Maybe those symbols are some kind of code. If we can figure out what they mean, Rachel nodded. Let's try touching one of them, carefully. Using the submersible's robotic arm, Jack extended a probe toward one of the glowing panels. As soon as the tip of the probe made contact, the panel lit up brightly, followed by a low hum that reverberated through the water. One by one, the other panels began to glow as well, forming a pattern that pulsed rhythmically. Then, with a sudden hiss, the hatch slid open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Well, Daniel muttered, that was easier than I expected. Too easy, Rachel replied, her brow furrowed. We need to stay alert. Who knows what's waiting for us inside? The team carefully guided the submersible through the opening, its lights illuminating the interior. The corridor was narrow and lined with walls that gleamed like polished silver. Strange designs covered the surfaces, geometric shapes intertwined with flowing lines that seemed to shift slightly under the light. It was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. As they moved deeper into the structure, they began to notice other details. There were no signs of decay or damage, suggesting that the structure had been perfectly preserved. Every surface was immaculate, as though it had been maintained regularly. But the most unsettling thing was the silence. Aside from the hum of the submersible's engines, there was no sound at all. It was as if the structure itself was holding its breath. After a while, they came to a large chamber. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, atop which rested a glowing orb. The orb pulsed softly, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Around it, rows of consoles and screens lined the perimeter of the chamber, though none of them appeared to be active. What do you think this place is? Kevin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Rachel admitted, her eyes wide with wonder. But it feels important, like it's meant to control something. Daniel stepped forward, examining the consoles more closely. These look like control panels. Maybe we can activate them somehow. Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and touched one of the screens. Instantly, the room came alive. Lights flickered on, bathing the chamber in a soft blue glow. The screens lit up with streams of data written in unfamiliar characters. At the same time, a mechanical voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a language none of them understood. Guys? Jack said nervously, gripping the controls of the submersible. I think we just woke something up. The orb on the pedestal began to spin faster and faster until it emitted a blinding flash of light. When the light faded, a holographic figure materialized in the center of the room. It was humanoid in shape, with features that were both familiar and alien. Its eyes glowed with an inner light, and its voice, when it spoke again, was calm and measured. Identification confirmed, the figure said in perfect English. Descendants of the creators detected. Welcome aboard the Erebus. The team exchanged stunned looks. Did that thing just call us descendants? Kevin asked, his voice trembling. It must mean humans, Rachel said, trying to process what she was hearing. This ship, it was built by our ancestors. The hologram nodded, as if responding to her thoughts. I am Aegis, the artificial intelligence tasked with safeguarding the Erebus. My primary directive is to protect humanity from external threats. However, my systems have been dormant for millennia. Your presence has reactivated me. Daniel took a step forward, his military instincts kicking in. External threats? What kind of threats? Aegis paused, as though accessing long-buried memories. The Dominion, it said finally. An interstellar empire that has monitored your species for centuries. They seek to exploit your resources and enslave your population. Their arrival is imminent. The room fell silent as the weight of Aegis's words sank in. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and it was in grave danger. We need to warn someone, Rachel said urgently. If this Dominion is coming, we have to prepare. Not yet, Daniel cautioned. We don't know enough about this ship or Aegis to trust it completely. For now, we keep this between us and figure out what we're dealing with. Over the next few hours, the team explored the Erebus, marveling at its advanced technology. They discovered weapon systems capable of obliterating entire fleets, cloaking devices that rendered the ship invisible, and energy shields strong enough to withstand any attack. It was clear that the Erebus was designed for war, but against whom? As they worked, Aegis provided answers to their questions, though its responses were often cryptic. It explained that the ship had been built by a prehistoric human civilization that had achieved space travel before being wiped out by a cataclysmic event. The Erebus had been hidden away as a failsafe, meant to protect humanity's descendants if the worst were to happen. By the time they returned to the surface, the team was exhausted but exhilarated. They had uncovered a secret that could change the course of history. But with great power came great responsibility, and the knowledge that their actions would have consequences far beyond anything they could imagine. Back aboard the Ocean Seeker, Rachel gazed out at the horizon, her mind racing. The Erebus was a gift and a burden. How would humanity react to such a discovery? And more importantly, were they ready to face the challenges that lay ahead? For now, the answers remained elusive. But one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed the discovery of the Erebus were a blur of activity. Rachel, Daniel, and the rest of the team worked tirelessly to understand the ship's systems and prepare for whatever might come next. The Ocean Seeker remained anchored above the site, its crew buzzing with quiet excitement and nervous energy. While most of them didn't know the full extent of what had been found, they could sense that something monumental was unfolding. Inside the Erebus, the team divided their efforts. Kevin focused on studying the strange symbols and data streams displayed on the ship's consoles, hoping to decode more of its secrets. Jack ran tests on the submersible, ensuring it was ready for another dive if needed. Meanwhile, Rachel and Daniel spent hours conversing with Aegis, the ship's artificial intelligence. Trying to piece together the history of the Erebus and its creators, Aegis proved to be both helpful and frustrating. It answered questions in precise, measured tones but often left out key details or spoke in riddles. For instance, when asked about the Dominion, the interstellar empire it claimed posed a threat to humanity, Aegis provided only vague descriptions. It mentioned advanced technology, vast fleets, and a ruthless desire to conquer weaker species, but little else. "They're watching us," Aegis said one day, its holographic form shimmering faintly in the dim light of the chamber. "Their scouts have detected unusual activity near your planet. They will investigate soon." Rachel exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. "How soon?" "Within weeks," Aegis replied. "Perhaps sooner." Daniel clenched his fists, frustration etched across his face. "We don't have enough time to figure all this out. If these Dominion ships show up, we won't stand a chance unless we can use the Erebus effectively." Rachel nodded, her mind racing. "We need help. More people experts who can understand this technology faster than we can." Daniel hesitated. Up until now, they had kept the existence of the Erebus a secret, sharing it only with the small group aboard the Ocean Seeker. But with the clock ticking, secrecy might no longer be an option. If we bring others in, word will get out. Governments, militaries, they'll want control of this thing. And if we don't? Rachel countered. What happens when the Dominion arrives and we're not ready? We can't fight them alone. After a long pause, Daniel sighed. You're right. Let's contact someone we trust. Someone high up who has the resources to mobilize quickly? They decided to reach out to President William Hayes, a pragmatic leader known for his calm demeanor during crises. Using secure communication channels, they sent a brief message explaining the situation without revealing too much. Within hours, they received a reply instructing them to remain in place while a delegation was dispatched to meet them. When the delegation arrived, it included scientists, engineers, and military personnel, all handpicked by the president himself. Among them was Lavra Bennett, a historian specializing in ancient civilizations, and Eric Lane, a brilliant but eccentric engineer obsessed with cutting-edge technology. Both were skeptical at first, but once they descended into the Erebus, and saw its wonders firsthand, their skepticism turned to awe. "This is impossible," Lavra murmured, as she traced her fingers over the glowing panels. "If this really was built by humans, it means our ancestors were far more advanced than anyone realized." Eric, meanwhile, was already tinkering with the ship's systems, muttering to himself as he tried to make sense of its alien interface. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," he admitted, "but I think I can adapt some of it for modern use." With the new arrivals lending their expertise, progress accelerated. They managed to activate more of the Erebus's functions, including its cloaking device and defensive shields. However, mastering the weapon systems proved far more challenging. The controls were unlike anything they had encountered, requiring a level of precision and coordination that none of them had yet achieved. As the days passed, tensions began to rise. The pressure of the looming threat weighed heavily on everyone. Arguments broke out over strategies and priorities. Some, like Eric, wanted to focus solely on reverse engineering the ship's technology, fearing it would be useless if they couldn't fully understand it. Others, like Jack, argued that they should prioritize training to operate the ship in case the Dominion attacked. "We can't afford to waste time debating," Daniel snapped during one heated discussion. "Every second we spend arguing is a second closer to disaster." Rachel stepped in, her voice firm but calm. "We need to work together. All of us. This isn't just about survival, it's about protecting humanity. That means finding a balance between learning and preparing." Her words seemed to ease the tension, at least temporarily. Everyone returned to their tasks with renewed determination, knowing there was no room for failure. Then, one evening, Aegis interrupted their work with an urgent warning. "Dominion scout vessels have entered Earth's orbit," it announced. "They are deploying a probe to assess your technological capabilities." The news sent shockwaves through the team. Panic threatened to take hold, but Daniel quickly took charge. "Activate the cloaking device," he ordered. "We can't let them find us." Eric rushed to comply, his hands flying over the controls. Moments later, the Erebus vanished from sight, hidden beneath layers of advanced camouflage. Outside, the probe drifted closer, scanning the area below. It lingered for several minutes before transmitting its findings back to the Dominion fleet. "That buys us some time," Daniel said grimly. "But they'll send more ships soon. We need to act now." Rachel looked at him, her expression resolute. "What do you suggest?" He hesitated, then spoke with quiet certainty. "We take the fight to them. Use the Erebus to destroy the probe and show them that humanity isn't defenseless." The idea was risky, but no one could deny its logic. If they could demonstrate the Erebus's power, they might deter further attacks or at least buy themselves more time to prepare. After a brief debate, the team agreed to proceed. Under Daniel's command, they guided the Erebus toward the probe. As they approached, the ship's weapon systems hummed with energy. Eric targeted the probe carefully, ensuring their attack would be swift and decisive. When the order came, he fired. A burst of plasma erupted from the Erebus, striking the probe with pinpoint accuracy. In an instant, the object disintegrated, leaving behind only a cloud of debris. The team watched in stunned silence as the remnants floated away. Their mission accomplished, but their relief was short-lived. Almost immediately, alarms blared throughout the ship. Aegis spoke urgently. "Dominion fleet responding. Multiple vessels inbound. Cloak us again." Daniel shouted. Eric complied, and the Erebus disappeared once more. The Dominion ships searched the area but found nothing. After a tense standoff, they retreated, though not before sending a final transmission. "Warning, you have declared war," the message read. "Prepare for annihilation." Back aboard the Erebus, the team sat in silence, the weight of their actions sinking in. They had struck the first blow, but they knew the real battle was yet to come. Humanity's fate now rested in their hands and on the shoulders of the ancient supercarrier that had awoken after millennia of slumber. For better or worse, they had altered everything, and there was no turning back. The days following the destruction of the Dominion probe were filled with both triumph and unease. The crew of the Erebus had proven that humanity could fight back, but they also knew their victory was only temporary. The Dominion's warning echoed in their minds: prepare for annihilation. It was a chilling reminder that the real battle was still ahead. Tensions aboard the ship continued to rise. Everyone felt the pressure of what lay ahead, and the strain began to show in how they interacted with one another. Arguments broke out more frequently, and even small disagreements turned into heated debates. Lavar, the historian, spent most of her time poring over the ancient inscriptions scattered throughout the Erebus. She believed that understanding the creators of the ship might hold the key to unlocking its full potential. But Eric, the engineer, grew impatient with her focus on the past. "We don't have time for this," Eric snapped one evening as Lavar tried to explain her latest findings. "Every second we waste studying old symbols is a second we're not preparing for the Dominion." Lavra shot him a sharp look. "If you'd listen for once, you'd realize these symbols are instructions. They tell us how to use the ship properly. If we rush, we'll make mistakes, and mistakes will get us killed." Daniel stepped between them, his voice firm. "Enough. We need both of you working together, not tearing each other apart." "Got it?" They nodded reluctantly, but the tension lingered. The stress wasn't limited to just Eric and Lavra. Jack, who usually kept a cool head, found himself snapping at Kevin during training exercises. Even Rachel, who had always been the calm center of the group, started showing signs of fatigue. Dark circles formed under her eyes, and she often retreated to quiet corners of the ship to think. Despite the growing friction, progress was being made. With Aegis's guidance, the team managed to unlock more of the Erebus's systems. They discovered a prototype teleportation device capable of transporting the entire ship across vast distances instantly. However, using it was risky. Aegis warned that the technology was unstable and could result in catastrophic failure if mishandled. "It's our best chance," Daniel said during one of their strategy meetings. "If we can strike at the heart of the Dominion, we might be able to end this before it starts." Rachel frowned. "It's too dangerous. What if something goes wrong? We could lose the ship or worse." "But what's the alternative?" Daniel countered. "Wait for them to come here and destroy us. At least this way we have a fighting chance." After much debate, the decision was made to use the teleportation device. They would take the Erebus directly to the Dominion's homeworld and launch a surprise attack. It was a desperate plan, but desperation was all they had left. As preparations continued, Lavra uncovered something that sent shockwaves through the team. While deciphering more of the inscriptions, she stumbled upon evidence suggesting that the Dominion had influenced human history for centuries. Subtle manipulations, economic collapses, technological setbacks, political upheavals, all designed to keep humanity weak and divided. "They've been controlling us," Lavra said, her voice trembling as she shared her discovery. "We thought we were free, but we've been puppets all along." The revelation shook everyone. For years, humanity had believed it was alone in the universe, charting its own course. Now they realized they had never truly been independent. The knowledge weighed heavily on the crew, especially Daniel, whose military background made him question everything he had fought for. "If they've been pulling the strings this whole time," he muttered, "then nothing we've done has mattered." Not until now. Eric, however, saw the discovery as motivation. "Then let's make sure they never control us again," he said fiercely. "This ship, it's proof that we're stronger than they think, stronger than they ever imagined." With renewed determination, the team finalized their plans. They tested the teleportation device repeatedly, running simulations to minimize the risks. Jack practiced evasive maneuvers, while Kevin worked tirelessly to improve the targeting systems for the ship's weapons. Meanwhile, Rachel and Daniel coordinated with Aegis, ensuring the AI would assist them during the mission. Finally, the day arrived. The crew gathered in the main chamber of the Erebus, their faces etched with a mix of fear and resolve. Aegis stood in holographic form, its glowing eyes scanning the room. "Destination coordinates locked," Aegis announced. "Teleportation sequence initiated?" The air around them shimmered as the device activated. For a moment, it felt as though The entire ship was being pulled apart, stretched thin across space and time. Then, with a sudden jolt, everything stabilized. The Erebus reappeared near the Dominion's capital world, catching the Empire completely off guard. "What now?" Kevin asked, his voice tight with nerves. Daniel didn't hesitate. "We hit them hard and fast. Show them we're not afraid." The Dominion fleet scrambled to respond, but the Erebus was faster. Its plasma cannons unleashed devastating barrages, obliterating enemy ships with terrifying efficiency. Jack maneuvered the Supercarrier with skill, dodging incoming fire while positioning them for counterattacks. The Dominion forces were caught off guard by the Erebus's advanced technology and relentless assault, but the battle wasn't without cost. The Erebus's shields flickered under the strain of repeated hits, and several systems malfunctioned due to the stress of teleportation. Eric worked frantically to repair the damage, sweat dripping from his brow as he raced against time. In the heat of the fight, Lavra noticed something strange. One of the Dominion ships seemed different from the others, larger, darker, and radiating an ominous energy. "That one," she said, pointing to the screen. "It's their command ship. Take it out, and we cripple their entire fleet." Daniel nodded. "Target confirmed. Eric, give me everything we've got." Eric hesitated. "We're already pushing the weapon systems to their limits. If we overload them—" "We don't have a choice," Daniel interrupted. "Do it." With a deep breath, Eric adjusted the controls, channeling every ounce of power into the plasma cannons. The Erebus unleashed a massive volley, striking the command ship dead center. The explosion was blinding, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The remaining Dominion vessels faltered, their coordination shattered, seizing the opportunity. Daniel ordered Eric to activate the teleportation device once more. This time, instead of retreating, they used it to create a massive rift, a tear in space that engulfed the Dominion fleet. Ships were sucked into the void, vanishing without a trace. When the rift collapsed, silence fell over the battlefield. The Dominion forces were decimated. Back aboard the Erebus, the crew stared at the screens in stunned disbelief. They had won, against all odds. They had defeated the Dominion's fleet. But their victory came at a price. Systems across the ship were damaged, and exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. Still, there was no time to rest. They needed to ensure the Dominion wouldn't retaliate. Aegis spoke, its tone calm but urgent. "Dominion leadership requests negotiations. They wish to discuss terms of surrender." Daniel exchanged a glance with Rachel. "Let's hear them out," he said finally. "But we stay on guard. This isn't over yet." As the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission, Rachel stepped aside, gazing at the stars outside the viewport. Humanity had taken a stand, proving it could rise above manipulation and oppression. But the road ahead would be long and difficult. The Erebus had given them hope, but it had also revealed the fragility of their freedom, for better or worse. The future was theirs to shape, and they intended to shape it wisely. The aftermath of the battle left the crew of the Erebus in a state of cautious relief. They had achieved the impossible, defeating the Dominion's fleet and forcing their leaders to negotiate. But no one aboard the ship allowed themselves to celebrate just yet. The scars of the fight were still fresh, both on the ship and within the team. Systems flickered unpredictably, repairs were ongoing, and everyone was physically and emotionally drained. Rachel stood near one of the viewports, staring out at the stars. Her hands rested lightly on the cool metal railing as she thought about what they had done. Humanity had taken its first step onto the interstellar stage, not as victims, but as warriors. The weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She turned when she heard footsteps behind her and saw Daniel approaching. "We did it," he said quietly, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Against all odds, we actually pulled it off." Rachel nodded, though her expression remained somber. "Yes, we did, but at what cost? How many lives were lost because of this war? And how many more will be affected by what comes next?" Daniel sighed, leaning against the railing beside her. "There's no easy answer to that. All we can do is try to make things better moving forward. That's why we're here, to protect Humanity, not just from the Dominion but from itself. His words struck a chord with Rachel. In the days leading up to the battle, she had wrestled with doubts about whether they were making the right choices. Now, standing here amidst the wreckage of their victory, she realized that perfection wasn't possible. What mattered was the intention behind their actions and the hope that they could create something better. Negotiations with the Dominion began shortly after the battle. Aegis facilitated communication between the two sides, ensuring that the discussions remained civil despite the underlying tension. The Dominion's representatives were haughty and condescending at first, clearly unaccustomed to being on the losing side of anything. But as the talks progressed, their tone shifted. They had underestimated humanity once and they weren't. Eager to repeat the mistake, Lavra played a crucial role during the negotiations. Her knowledge of ancient civilizations gave her insight into how empires like the Dominion operated. She advised the team on strategies to keep the Dominion leadership off balance, subtly reminding them of the Arugas's capabilities without resorting to threats. They respect strength, Lavra explained during one briefing. But they also fear unpredictability. If we show them we're willing to adapt and innovate, they'll think twice before challenging us again. Eric, meanwhile, focused on repairing the damaged systems of the Erebus. He worked tirelessly, alongside Kevin, patching up the teleportation device and reinforcing the ship's shields. Though exhausted, Eric couldn't help but marvel at the technology around him. Every new discovery sparked ideas for future innovations, ways to improve Earth's defenses and ensure humanity would never be vulnerable again. Jack kept watch over the Dominion's remaining forces, monitoring their movements closely. His experience as a pilot made him invaluable in assessing potential threats. "They're regrouping," he reported during one meeting, "not attacking but definitely planning something. We need to stay alert." Daniel agreed, emphasizing the importance of maintaining pressure on the Dominion. "We can't let them recover fully. For now, we've got the upper hand, but if they rebuild their fleet, we might not get another chance like this." The negotiations dragged on for days, each session filled with tense exchanges and careful maneuvering. Finally, an agreement was reached. The Dominion agreed to withdraw from Earth's sector of space indefinitely, recognizing humanity as an independent power. In return, the crew of the Erebus promised not to pursue further aggression unless provoked. When the terms were finalized, the mood aboard the ship shifted. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of closure, a feeling that they had accomplished something meaningful. The crew gathered in the main chamber to mark the occasion, sharing stories and laughter as they reflected on everything they had been through. "You know," Kevin said, breaking the silence with a grin, "I never thought I'd see the day when humanity stood toe-to-toe with an alien empire." "Let alone win," Jack chuckled, raising an imaginary glass. "Here's to proving them wrong." Rachel smiled, though her thoughts remained sober. "This isn't the end," she reminded them gently. "It's just the beginning." The Dominion may have backed down, but there are other threats out there. Other challenges we'll have to face. Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And then there's us. We've unlocked incredible power with the Erebus, but power can corrupt. If we're not careful, it's up to us to use it wisely for the good of everyone, not just a few." His words resonated deeply with the group. They had fought hard to protect humanity, but the real test lay ahead, building a future where such conflicts wouldn't define them. In the days that followed, the Erebus returned to its hiding place beneath the Pacific Ocean. Its presence remained a secret, known only to a select few. President William Hayes issued a public statement acknowledging the bravery of those involved in defending Earth, though he carefully avoided mentioning the ship or the true nature of the threat. To the world, it was a story of resilience and unity, a reminder that humanity could overcome even the greatest challenges. For Rachel, Daniel, and the rest of the crew, life slowly returned to some semblance of normalcy. They disbanded temporarily, returning to their respective lives while staying connected through secure channels. Each carried the memories of their journey with them, knowing they had changed the course of history forever, but the Erebus wasn't done yet. Deep below the waves, it waited patiently, ready to awaken whenever humanity needed it most. Aegis continued to monitor the stars, vigilant for any sign of trouble. And though the Dominion had retreated, the crew knew they hadn't seen the last of them or of the dangers lurking beyond Earth's borders. One evening, Rachel stood on the deck of the Ocean Seeker, gazing at the horizon as the sun dipped. Below the water, the sky blazed with colors orange, pink, and purple blending together in a breathtaking display. She felt a strange mix of peace and anticipation. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but she believed in the strength of those who had fought alongside her. As the stars began to appear, Rachel whispered softly to herself, "We've altered everything. For better or worse, we're no longer alone." And with that, she turned and walked back inside, ready to face whatever came next.